It is better to be smart than to be confused, and it is better to be confused than to pretend to be confused. When we are alive, we can't avoid being judged by others. There are true and false evaluations, praise and criticism. Everyone has different thoughts and reactions to the evaluation. Wang Yangming has his own thoughts on other people's comments. Wang Yangming's students once asked, both Uncle and Uncle Wu slandered Zhongni, why do great saints like Confucius still be vilified? When explaining this problem, Wang Yangming said, slander comes from the outside world. Even saints are inevitable. People should only pay attention to self-cultivation. If he is really a sage, even if people slander him, they can't talk about him. Just like floating clouds cover the sun. How can it damage the light of the sun? If he is a dignified and respectful person with an empty heart, even if no one speaks ill of him, his hidden evil will one day be exposed. So Mencius said, there are unexpected praise and too harsh slander. The bad reputation comes from the outside. How can we escape it? As long as you can cultivate yourself, what can you do with foreign reputations? In real life, we should not only strengthen our practice in the face of the reputation of others, but also laugh it off occasionally by pretending to be confused. In business and even on the battlefield, pretending to be confused is a wise survival strategy. Sun Bin was a famous military strategist in the Warring States period. Together with Pang Huan, he worshipped Guzi as his teacher and surpassed Pang Huan in intelligence. Because of his simplicity, Gui Guzi treated Sun Bin kindly and secretly taught him the military book Sun Tzu's Art of War, written by Sun Bin's ancestor Sun Wu. When Pang Huan became a general of the state of Wei and Sun Bin went to work with him, Pang Huan knew that Sun Bin had gained something else from his teacher, and hated Sun Bin even more. He falsely accused Sun Yinglai of communicating with foreign countries in front of King Wei Hui, and asked King Wei Hui to torture Sun Hui. Sun Bin, who was tortured, was unable to escape. So Pang Huan locked him up in a secret place, ostensibly courting and offering well, but in fact she took the opportunity to ask Sun Bin for the book Sun Tzu's Art of War. Since Sun Bin did not have a copy of the handbook, Pang Huan asked him to copy the chapters he remembered. After the completion of Sun Bin, Pang Huan is going to cut off the food supply and starve him to death. However, when the child servant sent by Pang Huan to wait on Sun Bin secretly told Sun Bin about Pang Huan's intrigue, Sun Huan suddenly realized. Sun Bin was a military strategist with lofty ambitions, and he immediately came up with a way out. That night, Sun Bin pretended to be mad, crying, laughing, making all kinds of silly looks, spitting, or upside down, and then turned out and burned the copied slips. Pang Huan suspected that he was pretending to be crazy and foolish and sent someone to throw him into the cesspool and make him dirty. For the sake of his lofty ambition, Sun Bin crawled in the dunghill, showing no concern. Pang Huan asked people to offer food and wine and deceived him by saying, "Eat, Xianggao doesn't know." Sun Bin glared angrily and cursed incessantly, saying, "Are you trying to poison me?" Pour the food on the ground casually. Pang Huan asked people to bring clods or dirt, but Sun Bin took it as a good thing to eat. Pang Huan believed that Sun Bin was indeed insane and his suspicion was slightly relieved. At this time, Jian Shali, a disciple of Mo Zhai, told Zhou, the Prime Minister of Qi, about Sun Bin he had seen in the state of Wei, and Zhou told the king of Qi Wei. The king of Qi ordered the debater Chuniu Kun to go to the state of Wei, to see King Hui of Wei, secretly find Sun Bin and secretly take Sun Bin back to the state of Qi. When Sun Bin was in prison, he was calm, deliberately pretending, stupid, crazy, endured great humiliation and torture, deceived Pang Huan and saved his life. Later, in the Battle of Ma Ling, Sun Bin, with his outstanding military ability, designed to get rid of his arch-rival Pang Huan, and wash away the humiliation. Sun Bin saved his life by pretending to be confused. Behind this kind of pretending to be confused is actually a kind of great wisdom, which often seems to be useless, but in fact it is foolish and clumsy, and can tolerate everyone, while showing others with the face of useless. The more modest you are, the taller the other person is. And the more simple and friendly you are, the more they will want to get along with you, and think that you are kind and reliable. The more respectful and obedient you are, the more his command will be satisfied. I think he cooperates well with you, and gets along well with you. On the contrary, if you appear in a tough posture, higher than your opponent everywhere and aggressive, the other person will feel nervous and uncertain, and it is easy for the other party to have a rebellious mentality, making it difficult for contacts and work to continue. Confucius once said, just, resolute, wooden, dull, close to benevolence, and Lao Tzu also said that the true wise men always look like fools. On this point, there seems to be a striking similarity between ancient and modern people at home and abroad. American President Franklin Roosevelt expressed his philosophy: he who does not know how to hide his ingenuity is a real fool. Therefore, it is really clever to say that you are clumsy, and wise as if you are foolish. It is just that you hide your cleverness with a false and confused face. Anytime, anywhere, whatever happens. If a person wants to make his life more happy and less troublesome, he must learn to live with what happens. Zaiyuan, located next to Longgang College, is a small vegetable field in the countryside, but in the eyes of Wang Yangming, it is a good place to go. Fences, wild flowers, vegetables, traveling with the scenery in the natural feelings. He can rest in the shade, read, and follow the peasants to hum songs. In the evening, he dined on a small table under the eaves. When he was drunk, he slept on the straw mat. In this poem, we can see Wang Yangming's state of mind anytime, anywhere and at ease. Nan Huijin, a famous master of sinology, said that it is very difficult for a person to be safe at any time. Everything in the world has its own laws. Water will not choose the road when it flows. Trees are free when they sway in the wind, and they all know how to let nature take its course. Therefore, it is not advisable to pull out seedlings to encourage it, and it is also foolish to go up against the current. They will not choose the road when they flow. The trees are free when they sway in the wind, and they all know how to let nature take its course. No matter how beautiful things are, the results are the same, good or bad, high or low, beautiful or ugly, big or small. There is no big difference in feeling. The difference is their process. Enjoy the comfort of struggle in the process that is happy. Face this process is the situation, an irresistible objective fact. You can only let nature take its course. Once upon a time there was a country with a small land and a small population. But the people lived a leisurely and happy life because they had a king who did not like to do things and a prime minister who did not like to be an official. The king did not have any bad habits. Apart from hunting, he liked to make private visits with the prime minister. In addition to dealing with state affairs, the prime minister accompanied the king to visit the countryside, and his most common saying was, "Everything is the best arrangement." Once, the king happily went hunting on the prairie and shot a leopard. The king was very happy. He saw the leopard lying on the ground for a long time without movement. For a moment, he lost his guard and dismounted to inspect the leopard before his entourage caught up. Who would have thought? The leopard suddenly jumped up and pounced on the king with his last strength. Fortunately, the follower caught up in time and immediately shot an arrow into the leopard's throat. The king felt that as soon as the little finger was cold, the leopard fell to the ground. This time it really died. But half of the king's little finger was bitten off. After returning to the palace, the king became more and more unhappy, so he found the prime minister to drink and relieve his worries. When the prime minister knew about this, he offered a drink to the king and said with a smile, "Your Majesty, it's better to lose a small piece of meat than to lose a life. Keep an open mind. Everything is the best arrangement." The king was so angry that he stared at the prime minister and said, "How dare you? Do you really think everything is the best arrangement?" The prime minister found the king very angry, but said carelessly, "King, really? If we can surpass our own temporary success or failure, indeed, everything is the best arrangement." The king said, "If I put you in prison, is that the best arrangement?" The prime minister smiled and said, "If this is the case, I am convinced that this is the best arrangement." With a big wave of the king's hand, the two guards went out with the prime minister on their arms. After a month, the king healed his wound and planned to find the prime minister for a private patrol as before, but thinking that he had beaten him into prison himself. He could not put himself down to release the prime minister, sighed, and traveled alone. On the way, a group of barbarians captured the king to sacrifice to the gods. But the high priest finally found that the king's left little finger was missing, and he could not help but gnash his teeth and curse for a long time, and then ordered, "Get rid of this trash, and find another one, because the sacrifice to God is to use a perfect sacrifice." The king, who was freed from poverty, rushed back to the palace and immediately ordered the prime minister to be released, held a banquet in the royal garden to save his life, and celebrated the prime minister's freedom. The king toasted the prime minister, and said, "Prime Minister, what you said is absolutely right. Sure enough, everything is the best arrangement." If he hadn't been bitten by a leopard, he would have lost his life today. The prime minister replied to the king with a smile, and said, "Happy king's experience of life, please climb another tall building." After a while, the king suddenly asked the prime minister, "I got away with it. Of course, everything is the best arrangement, but how can you say that you have been in prison for a month for no reason?" The prime minister slowly took a sip of the wine and said, "Your Majesty, it is indeed the best arrangement for you to put me in prison. Come to think of it, if I wasn't in prison, then who else would accompany you on your private tour if it wasn't me? When the barbarians find that the king is not fit to sacrifice the goddess of the full moon, who will be thrown into a cauldron to cook. It's not me. Who else? Therefore, I would like to propose a toast to you for the king to put me in prison, and you have saved my life. The Prime Minister said, everything is the best arrangement. This is the mindset of letting nature take its course. But to let nature take its course is not to wait passively, rather, to let it go is to seek the balance of life. In fact, most of the time, letting nature take its course is a realm. This kind of mentality is actually doing nothing but doing something, a desire without desire, a sign of maturity and an accomplishment of a successful person. People are small and fragile in the world, but they are often self-expanding and lack of sober self-orientation, which is often the source of too much regret, so frustration becomes inevitable. In the face of the success or failure of the honor or disgrace of life, we should learn to be comfortable with the circumstances, remove the spiritual shackles bound to the heart, and pack light.